Alright, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story I want to talk about today is this recent physique update from Brandon Curry, posted at around 3 weeks out from the 2022 Mr. Olympia. Now, honestly, it's hard to tell with Brandon sometimes whether or not his updates are recent or how recent they are, but I'm going to assume this was from this prep based on the cryptic caption that he had on this post. He says, "I know a lot of athletes experience dark times the closer they come to competition, burdened with the pressures of performing your best, and high expectations can build up enough to get you weighed down with possibilities of failure or just making mistakes. I've been there before. There are many variables that exist outside of our control. Now I move with a peace that passes all understanding. Not my will, but thy will be done." So based on that caption, I believe he's referencing this prep. And based on that caption, I believe this photo is from this prep. Now, when during his prep is this from, we're not really sure. But what we can tell from this photo is Brandon looks really round, he looks really full, and pretty big, which I would imagine is his strategy going up against Big Ramy for the third time now, trying to be a runner-up or in that conversation for top two. Obviously, he's not trying to be runner-up, he's trying to beat Ramy. Now, it's really hard to tell with Brandon how he's going to look. He hasn't really posted much during the majority of this prep. We haven't really seen much from him since the Arnold Classic of this year, which, to be honest, I was not super impressed with how he looked at the Arnold. And that's the main reason why, in my prediction video, I have Brandon dropping from second to third. I thought that his battle with William Bonac at the Arnold Classic this year was extremely close. A lot of people even had Bonac beating him on the merit of conditioning. I think Brandon really didn't nail his conditioning at that show. And if he comes in looking like he looked at that Arnold Classic, I don't think that's going to be enough to remain in the top two and to remain in the conversation with Big Ramy. And that's the main reason why I have Hadi Choopan in second place. I think Hadi Choopan is consistently conditioned, and it looks like Brandon Curry's consistency with that conditioning dropped a little bit at the Arnold Classic, and we haven't really seen much from him during this prep to suggest that he has fixed that. If anything, we've seen a lot of photos of him looking bigger and rounder and fuller, and not necessarily an emphasis on his conditioning. And I think if he does come in with Arnold Classic conditioning, he's going to lose that second place spot. Because he's kind of in this weird position where he's got a great shape, he's got a great structure, very aesthetic and pleasing to look at physique, he's got a relatively good amount of size, but next to Big Ramy, he's obviously kind of forced to play that size game or risk being dwarfed at the Olympia. And in my mind, it looks to me like he's sacrificing a little bit of that conditioning to hold on to a little bit of that roundness and fullness and size to be more competitive with Ramy. But that look at the Arnold Classic concerned me a little bit, to be completely honest. He looks good in this update. Granted, we don't know when exactly it's from. And as much as I love Brandon and I love his physique and I love him as a person, he's a great guy, really nice guy, one of the nicest bodybuilders I've met. I'm having a hard time visualizing him in the conversation for the win here in a lineup like this. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about Brandon Curry's chances at this year's Mr. Olympia. Now, next up in the news, let's talk classic physique a little bit. So, Ruff Diesel, Terrence Ruffin posted this update on his YouTube page as a short, and this was from the Monster Classic, the NPC competition, which was November 17th, so a couple of weeks ago, right around the 5 weeks out mark. So this wasn't a 3 weeks out update or a 3 weeks out guest posing. This was a couple weeks back, so this is his conditioning at about 5 weeks out, and I think he looks phenomenal here. And I honestly think we have a little bit more of an interesting storyline this year with this potential, all this conversation about Chris Bumstead's bicep. Is it injured? Why does it look so imbalanced? Is it just the photo? Is it just the lighting? Is it just the angle? Or is there potentially going to be a weak point in Chris's physique this year that we didn't see last year? Because I do think it was closer between Chris and Terrence last year than people like to admit, even though I think Chris is a very dominant champion. If Chris does have some sort of injury or some sort of new imbalance in his physique, I think that could give Terrence a much better shot at winning the show. And to be honest, I'm still not really 100% sure what to think of these pictures from Chris. Could it be the lighting and angle? I think it could be. Could it also be an injury? I think it also could be that. But while we don't really have an explanation, I don't think we will get one, if there is one, until after the show. I mean, no coach or no bodybuilder is going to come out right before the show and point more attention to an injury if there is one. If there is an injury, they're likely going to talk about it after the fact. Because if Chris and Hani came out and said, look, I tore my bicep, or some people were saying they thought it might have even been the tricep right before the Olympia or during the Olympia prep, that's going to draw attention to it from the judges. And other competitors will know and try to expose that on stage. So that's why I think all this speculation remains about Chris's bicep, because everybody kind of knows, even if you ask them, they're not going to tell you that it is, if it is. I still think Chris is going to win the Olympia this year, but I think it does create a cool narrative where there might be a shot for one of these other guys if there is this scenario where he's injured, which we don't know for sure. But bottom line, I think Terrence looks amazing. Now, we also got a physique update from Kalecinski on his story, a nice little conditioning update, which we already know about I mean, every update that we've seen from this kid, his conditioning looks phenomenal. He's been extremely consistent with his conditioning. He reminds me of Hadi Chupin in that way. In the classic physique class, he's a guy that you can count on. He's going to be in really good shape. He's going to always impress from the conditioning standpoint. Maybe he does have some points he needs to improve. I still think his arms need improvement, even though I think he has improved them. I think his back still needs a little bit of improvement, even though I think he has improved it. But his conditioning is very dangerous and very competitive, and even in classic physique, I think is very important still. And while the judging metrics in classic are a little bit different than men's open bodybuilding, and conditioning I would say is probably not as important as it is in men's open bodybuilding, I still think it's a major factor, and I still think that is probably going to move up in placings this year at the Olympia. Now, with the classic physique stories being covered, let's get back to bodybuilding here. Nick Walker posting a physique update under 3 weeks out, saying tight waist coming in hot. Now, obviously, last week we had a lot of conversation about a video of Nick Walker posing where he had a pretty distended midsection, and I made the point when talking about that to say that Nick has always on stage kept his midsection tight. Do I like a distended stomach on a bodybuilder? Absolutely not. Do I want to see it on stage? Absolutely not. But do I think seeing it in the off season is an indicator that we're going to see it on stage? Not necessarily. We've seen Nick in the offseason with kind of this distended stomach thing happening, but we have yet to see him on stage with it happening, which I think it makes it less of a concern. That's always the thing that's impressed me about Nick is his midsection control, and really the deepness in the separation in his abs really helps him out a lot, because really when he flexes his midsection, he does have really defined abs, which really makes his midsection look a lot better for a guy that really doesn't have the most aesthetically pleasing physique. Now, I did also hear a rumor from a pretty credible source that Nick now is thinking about not doing the Arnold Classic. He said before he wanted to come back and do it in 2023 because he didn't defend his title this past year, but now I'm hearing they're going to move the Olympia to November, so the proximity between the Arnold and the Olympia is allegedly or apparently too close for Nick to focus exclusively on the Olympia, so now I'm hearing he's probably not going to do the Arnold. Now, I really think that's probably going to depend on how he places at the Olympia this year. I think he's expecting a top 3 placing. I have him in 4th, and my predictions was moves him up from 5th place last year. But let's say he places outside of where we think he will. Let's say maybe he's even outside the top 6. In that scenario, I think he would probably do the Arnold Classic. Because I think realistically the reasoning would be if he's top 3 this year, then he thinks he's got a shot to win the Olympia. He probably wants to shut it down and just focus on the Olympia next year. And with a month less time to prepare, it makes it more imperative for him to really focus on improving for that show. Which, in my mind, really begs the question, how much does Nick really need to improve, and what does that mean? I mean, if Nick adds size, where is he really going to add it to? Because his frame is a pretty compact frame, and I would say Nick is pretty close to maxed out on the amount of muscle that he has on his frame. Any more muscle, I think it would probably throw his physique off. So really the only area of improvement, I think, is tighter conditioning. With the amount of muscle he has, he's already competitive with the top guys. He's already won the Arnold Classic. He's already won the New York Pro. I think his focus should be just tighter conditioning. And really, does he need to take the whole year off and not do the Arnold Classic to achieve that? Maybe, maybe not. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Now, the final story I wanted to cover in this video, we did get a kind of a physique update from Big Ramy. In one of Dennis James's recent podcasts, he showed a screenshot on his phone of one of the recent physique updates of Ramy at supposedly right now, at around 3 weeks out, the time that he's now at Dennis James's house, so a very recent update. And in recent weeks, it would appear that Ramy has kind of stopped posting updates like this publicly on Instagram. So to me, any update that we can get from Ramy this close to the show is a newsworthy and important one, but I do want to acknowledge this is obviously a very low quality image that we're able to get from this video. It's obviously kind of washed out from the lighting from the phone into the camera, but it is a front lat spread shot of Ramy where really the only thing you can tell from this is that he looks massive. His legs look stupid big, his lats look stupid wide, but you really can't get a good idea of what kind of shape Ramy's in based on this update. I mean, it's really tough to tell, but again, I think any update that we get from Ramy this close to the show is something to be talked about and something newsworthy. But shout out to Dennis James on his Menace podcast is where you can find this update. update. But that's going to wrap it up for the video, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. If you have not already commented one of the many Olympia-related videos, comment your predictions for the Olympia in the comment section down below. Make sure you leave a like. Make sure you subscribe. That thumbs up and that subscription helps out a lot, so make sure you do that if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.